Hi everyone, Nhire here, and this is another build guide kind of content, and this time around we're actually focusing once again on the old FaceBreakers. I'm saying once again because I already made a build like this, that was back in Legion League, and the build was extremely powerful to the point where you could basically just AFK on the Guardian fights and they would just die on their own because of the Surrender Reckoning skill. However, after the league was ended, or I think actually that was right in the middle of the league, its DPS been nerfed quite heavily. The base flat physical from the Reckoning was nerfed, the base damage multiplier on the Reckoning was nerfed, the Cyclone flat physical damage was nerfed, the Herald of Purity flat physical was changed to Mara physical damage instead, and this kind of killed the build, reducing its DPS by about half. And ever since then I just didn't want to play it anymore. However, after a few changes came in, and basically after investing quite a lot of money into the build, you can still make it pretty decent. In fact, you can make it pretty amazing. However, there is a ceiling which is kind of bad, since if you invested like a whole ton of money back in Legion League, you could easily go to like 25-30 million DPS. However, on this one I did get to about 17 million, which is then increased to about 19 if you have blocked a hit from a unique enemy recently. However, thing is, I've been actually trying to make this like really high-end build with tailwind even, and I did make some really nice bits. However, from the looks of it and from a post made about yesterday on Reddit, it appears to be that tailwind does not apply to cyclone, which is kind of shit. And basically just lowered our DPS by like 1.6, 1.7 million. So this build, instead of being 17, is just about 15.6, 15.4, something like that. And it's still nice, considering how quickly the bosses die, since the Guardians die in about 3-4 seconds. And I think that's pretty actually acceptable. The defense of this build is actually amazing as well, so this DPS along with the defensive values is just completely stupid. However, the life is quite low, which is not that gigantic of an issue for the physical hits and rather just basic attacks. However, for the spells it is quite an issue, especially since this build is using quite a few nicks, and we do lack quite a bit of elemental resistances, which we obviously already have capped. However, well, they're just barely capped, so this is an issue, since in fights like Elder or Shaper, when they basically have the elemental penetration, you do get quite big hits and you can get one shot. So if you want to invest in some other items to increase your resistances, that's also an option. However, rings that you might need are gonna be really expensive, since if you want to scale DPS really nicely, you do want things like T1 physical damage on your rings, along with like a whole lot of life resistances, and this is gonna cost quite a bit. You can obviously give up on like 1-2 million DPS and get yourself a different ring without physical, but like really nice resistances. However, still you probably want to get a steel ring just so you can get more scaling overall. And another thing is, since tailwind doesn't actually work, you can get yourself boots that have nothing else but just as much life on them, and then like triple res, so you can be a little bit overcapped. Or if you can somehow manage to overcap yourself without boots, like through jewels or anything like this, then you can basically just give yourself a pair of counters with corruption, maybe for increased life, so your life pool is gonna increase by like 300-400 if not more, and this is in itself gonna be quite nice when it comes to survivability. However, well, there's quite many options in how to minimize this build, and there's many different things you can actually do. You can also drop out abysses if you want to. You can give yourself a helmet that has something like a Dread Banner effect or Blood and Sand effect, along with a 9% increased physical damage taken, craft on it from the Elder mods. This is going to be quite expensive as well, and it will like get a little bit of the damage back for you. However, Abyssus is just way too strong of a damage boost, considering you do need flat physical and you do scale your DPS really nicely with crit multiplier, which Abyssus gives you. And well, Abyssus is not really that big of a deal when it comes to the damage taken, since, as you know, Abyssus has the 40-50% increase melee physical damage taken. Or is it just physical damage taken? It's physical damage taken, yeah. So this is quite a dangerous mod. However, if you have a lot of armor, you have endurance charges, 45, things like this, it's not really that big of a deal. So it can be mitigated, which is also really nice. and overall you can actually stay alive for quite a long time, really. Anyway, just to explain the build concept itself, it's actually nothing special, to be honest. You basically use FaceBreakers, which can be quite nicely corrupted, especially after the new divination card was added to the game, called the Unchained, for the double implicit FaceBreakers. They do sell for quite a bit. I think I probably like this, the ones that I have right now, you can see. They're about, I think they were about 30x or something like this. At the time, I bought them for way cheaper. I think I paid like 7x for those. And these ones are just amazing, especially with the more physical damage taken affix you can see right over there. It's just 5% off, which is just crazy. Vulnerability is max, and it's just great. It's important to have vulnerability on hit on the gloves, since otherwise you're gonna have to use it on the temper shield, and that's another 2 sockets for the jewels. For the gems, because you're also gonna need text touch. And since you are already missing a weapon, you can only really use 3 sockets, and getting another 2 is just horrible. Not to mention this build is really hungry for the sockets to begin with, so getting yourself a vulnerability on hit on the gloves is just mandatory. These ones are gonna be expensive, but this is a gigantic damage boost. You obviously can just buy yourself a pair with decent more physical damage multiplier for just a few KS, and then later on when you get more money, just get ones like this or something similar to those. Next thing we use is a Surrender. Surrender is a shield that gives level 30 Reckoning skill, as well as life when you block, and quite a decent chance to block overall, as well as a lot of armor, which is quite useful since you do take increased physical damage. So this is basically the only use of it. Normally you would basically use this with things like pulverize, melee, physical damage and brutality. However, since I do need quite a few extra sockets for other things, I don't really have this luxury. The only one I use is actually pulverize, just so I can have more damage and increase AoE. Next thing is the Regal's Curse. This one actually gives you a lot of damage and makes your unarmed attacks have base critical strike chance, which is then nicely scaled with all the crit on the tree. Not to even mention it allows all the crit damage, claw damage, claw attack, speed and crit chance apply to your unarmed attacks, which is really nice. The biggest downside to this amulet is basically the fact that you cannot anoint anything on it, and that is quite detrimental. Well, they did make an update about about the talismans being able to have anointments when you them. However, Rigrod's Curse, I'm not sure, but I think the Rigrod's Curse cannot be acquired through the cards, so that's kind of bad. Maybe they'll fix something about it, you can actually get something, and if you could, that would be just great. If you could get yourself a decent anointment, this build could actually get stronger, and this build is gonna be possible to build at pretty much every league, since all of these items are a core of the game, so you can make this whenever you want. It's not something like the heist builds, like the Albron's Warpath one I made recently, where if the item is not gonna go core with heist, or if the replicas themselves are not gonna go core, then build is just not gonna be possible to build anymore, right after the league is ended. Anyway, continuing, Abysses, increased damage taken. That's basically all there is to say about Abysses. You get a flat physical damage for the FaceBreakers, so you can actually scale them. You get crit multi, which you basically need because you have a lot of crit and you want really strong hits, and increased physical damage taken, which makes you kind of, easy to kill. Along with the attributes, which give you the possibility to, wear all of your stuff without actually having to sacrifice suffixes for the intelligence in your rings, so without using the plus 30 intelligence nodes on the tree. And overall, this is pretty nice. Ones with 40% physical damage taken instead of like 45, 50 or whatever are quite expensive. I think I bought this one for about 60c. And if you want one that is both decent and has an enchantment that you can use, you're gonna do spend quite a few X, unless you want to just buy any with an enchantment they want, and then just divine it till you get something acceptable. Next, we got Rislava's Coil, the highest DPS belt you can get for this build. I haven't called it up to the end actually for some reason, but overall it is a really nice belt. It gives you life when you stun an enemy, which is happening quite often when you farm, however on the bosses it's just not gonna happen. And the most important thing is obviously the more maximum physical damage and less minimum. This is really, really big when it comes to damage dealing, and there is no other build you can get that's gonna give you as much DPS as this one here. Then we got the rings, as basically steel rings, which I use deafening essence of contempt on, so you can get a T0 physical damage to attacks, which is hella strong. I think I actually bought this one for about 4x or 5x or something like this, and then I made this one quite cheaply. I was just spamming the deafening essence of contempt, and I think it was like 6th or 7th try or something like this. It is acceptable, nothing special. Basically just want the physical damage and nothing else. Last thing is my boots. As I said earlier on, you don't need tailwind, since for some reason cyclone doesn't work with tailwind this league. Well, there is nothing we can do about this one. And as I said, we are not really resistance capped, so you can just ditch tailwind, get yourself boots that have pretty much as much life and just way more resistances, so you can deal with bosses like Elder and Shaper that have penetration. Or you can just try to get more resistances and whatever else, including jewels, and then just go for the calms roots. For the flasks, like a single life flask is enough, with reduced recovery rate, increased amount recovered. Diamond flask, and in this case freeze immunity, since we don't use calms roots on this one. Silver flask, that's just small charges, increased strike chance from the Cinder Swallow node that I got early on. Bottle Fave, the highest DPS flask. Lion's Roar, just armor and more DPS, there's nothing else to it. Then if we go on for the links, we do have the Cyclone, obviously, 2120, Impale, increase AoE, which we then change for the concentrated effect. We've got Melee Fist, which I haven't qualityed up yet. Got Fortify, and got Brutality. And for the other stuff, we got Flesh and Stone with Maim, so we can actually get increased DPS from the Flesh and Stone, since Maim bonus applies to the Flesh and Stone. Along with Enlighten level 4 and Precision level 12. With level 12, this build actually has max chance to hit. Then we got Enduring Cry, Pulverize, and Ancestral Warchief in the Surrender, so you got the Pulverize support on both Warchief and the Reckoning. It is quite useful for the clear speed. Then we got Power Charge and Crit, Shield Charge, Tempest Shield, and Anomalous Blood Rage. Anomalous Blood Rage is extremely nice because it basically gives us chance to get Frenzy Charges during the boss fights. That's about 2% chance to get one when you hit a unique enemy. And since we are playing Cyclone, we do have a lot of hits a second, which makes it so that we always have Frenzy Charges during the boss fights. And last but not least, Ancestral Protector, Blood and Sand, Dread Banner, and Halve of Purity. This is basically all the auras that we're gonna need to get as much DPS as possible. With all of this and Enlighten, we do have 98 mana remaining, which is pretty much enough to sustain the Cyclone. However, well, if we hold it for quite a while without attacking anything, it's gonna run out really quickly. Now for the skill tree. We do take the Pain Forge along with Versatile Combatant, Violent Retaliation, and Arena Challenger. The first thing you want to take when you're leveling is obviously going to be Arena Challenger. After this, you're going to take Pain Forge and Versatile Combatant. This, the Violent Retaliation, is being the last one that you're going to get on the maps from the Uber Lab, is basically something of an extra. It's just more chance to block attack damage, and basically the maximum limit is increased along with the extra damage whenever you block something. You don't need a Talion at all, so basically it's just something you can get at the end. And everything else is basically not really useful for this build, so you can just ignore that. Now, we basically take everything related to shield that you can. So you take all the block nodes, you take all the life nodes. This wheel is really nice, so you gotta make sure to take this one here as well. There's block chance here along with the increased DPS. Increased damage per every single block chance. This is 79% increased damage node in a single node, along with 3% chance to block. Then we also have the mentioned intelligence, since we do need a little bit of it at least, since we don't have anything in the rings. And Impale effect with chance to impale, going for life, the call of the cool to arms, so we can actually move with the enduring cry and the left click, so we don't have any cast time and we don't waste time, and it's, well, it's not annoying to us, since I've been trying to play with this on a F1, F2 kind of click, and constantly stopping to cast this is just painful, and I don't want to deal with it. I'd rather just spend this single point, get rid of it, have the left click, and not give a damn. Another shield node, life nodes, along with the armor, go on to the left side, shield nodes, life nodes, attack speed, crit chance. Obviously all the crits, all the claw stuff without the crits, since these ones here actually don't apply the multiplier to the FaceBreakers, which is kind of sad, but well, nothing we can do about this one. And then we also have all the basic stuff from the shadow area for the increased damage, as well as the crit chance. And we do have here a lethal pride, and the reason for that is intimidate on hit, which is right here. Yeah, 10% chance to intimidate enemies for 4 seconds on hit. This alone increases our DPS by 10%, and since this is like an outside multiplier, it's 10% increased damage taken that is applied to the enemies, which is really nice for the DPS boost. And other than that, I believe I've got 10% fortify effect and 20% melee damage. Yeah, sadly I don't have any increased life. That'd be great to have. Sadly, I don't have it. For the tree, that's pretty much it. And when it comes to things like leveling, well, the leveling process is nothing special, to be honest. You can use any melee skill you like, it's all about the preference. This one is cyclone mostly because it's, well, the best skill for the FaceBreakers. If you don't want to use really slow slams, and this is the highest DPS one as well. So for the leveling process, you can use things like double strike, you can use cleave if you want to use swords instead, you can just go with cyclone, you can use perforate. However, probably the best choice would be to actually just go with a claw that has life gain on hit, so you can have your survivability intact, and just play cyclone since it attacks really quickly and just gonna heal you really quickly as well. It's nice to get a shield early on too, since they do keep you alive quite often, and you can get extra resistances from those. So it's really easy to just not waste your time during the leveling process, and well, just not constantly die. Like, well, some people did, like me for example, who was trying to go with 2 swords, and basically at level 12 I believe I was going with the princess, which is a 10% physical damage as an extra cult, which is really nice for leveling, and I just kept going with this till Act 7 or something, and just because, well, the weapons were quite nice, I didn't upgrade anything, I didn't have any life gain on here, I barely had any life leech, and no block at all, because I was just going for DPS. There was no wise choice, let's be honest here. And yeah, just go for claws, just take a shield, don't die, take it a little bit slowly, maybe 30% less DPS, maybe 40, but still actually manage through it. And that's gonna be fine. Well, I think that's actually it for this build. You've seen some clips at the beginning of the video regarding the clear speed. The boss fights are extremely nice. The clear speed is nothing great, however, you can, instead of like life, if you don't want to focus entirely on the boss fights, instead of taking like 2 points in here for the life, you can just give yourself the increased area of effect here, with the lethal assault for another 10%. In this case, this being 15% altogether, and I also have here melee damage, which is nice. So it's, well, that's pretty good. And later on, you can actually get yourself the Brinkmanship, which is also pretty nice because it gives you even more AoE. And I think that's actually it, guys. This video is actually way shorter compared to the other ones, since every single one of those were actually above 20 minutes each, and this one is just 19 minutes at the time. But yeah, I think that's actually it. Thank you for watching, and hope you like the build. I hope you try it yourself, just don't spend too much money on it, and yeah, have fun. Have a nice one, guys. See ya.